Aatrox, I've been watching since the iconic Aatrox 19. May I use my one time? This is your first time chat message, but you've been watching for 5 years. Okay, sure. Let me check. When were you following? Following since 2021. Wait, okay. Yeah, of course. Of course. What's your one time? I'm a computer engineering student, 3.7 GPA and honors, by the way, if you want to tell your friend Jensen. I will tell my friend Jensen that I know a bright young man with a 3.7 GPA and a dual major in difficult majors. I'll tell him that. I love the work you do and the way you explain things. So I would love to see more content on tech and geopolitics, i.e. the new Huawei Ascend 910D versus NVIDIA H100 or the congressional hearing on the AI race. I know you said that CUDA is what keeps NVIDIA on top with the ROCm and one API and Huawei's CAN. You still believe they will continue to be on top? So I thought about this today because Jensen talked about it. I'll give you an honest answer. I think it's an interesting question. NVIDIA just had their earnings like a day ago. And they were, again, blowout earnings. NVIDIA revenue was up on data center and up on gaming. Even gaming's up. It's not a big part of their business anymore, but it's still up. They're still dominant. NVIDIA's doing well. In fact, I believe today, not for the whole day, but for part of the day, NVIDIA was the #1 most valuable company on earth again. They passed Microsoft. I shouldn't have to say this, but for anyone wondering if they want to make a big deal about it, I sold my shares at $120 a share. They are now worth $140, which means I have missed out on 15% price appreciation. However, in the same time, if you're wondering, gold is up 37%, so I don't feel bad about it. They're doing quite well. I mean, the earnings was quite great. And one of the things Jensen said was, listen, everything is going well, but the stuff we are doing to block my ability to sell NVIDIA chips to China is bad. Now, of course he's going to say that because he wants to sell to China, but here's his argument. He basically says this: by not allowing Chinese companies to buy NVIDIA chips, they are forced to create their own alternatives. And so all we are doing is short-term, maybe benefiting America, but to long-term build a massive Chinese competitor that is going to possibly dominate the whole industry. So he makes a fair argument that the restrictions are actually backfiring. And the examples you mentioned, specifically the Huawei Ascend 910, Huawei is becoming like the NVIDIA of China, but with even more other businesses. They're becoming a full stack all tech company, and they are catching up. Nobody can make something as good as the H100 right now, which is the big server chip they can use for data centers for AI, but they're getting closer. They're catching up rapidly. And so I think Jensen makes a fair point that like this clearly isn't working. Like, by restrictions are not like stopping China. They're maybe tiny bit slowing them down, but at the cost of like, here's the opposite example. Here's the opposite example. Imagine you're a Chinese AI company. Let's say you're Baidu, the Google of China, and you're like, well, I want to have a new AI data center. Well, what's the best thing to buy? I'll just buy NVIDIA. That's what they think. That's what they were doing. But now, because it's restricted, they're like, okay, well, we're going to smuggle in as many NVIDIA chips as we can, but we're also going to spend this money on whoever can make the closest alternative in China. So all of their demand is going to help fund new Chinese competitors. But here's the alternative. Imagine if there was no restriction at all. Baidu will just simply never buy the worst option, so it never gets off the ground. They'll just buy NVIDIA forever because it's available and do you know what I'm saying? I think it's a really fair argument. The restrictions have only backfired. So I think Jensen has a good point, but it's hard to tell because he benefits so much from the restrictions being lifted. China will just steal the tech and make their own faster if we export. That is 100,000% not true, in that they have no difficulty getting their hands on the chips. They have absolutely no difficulty getting their hands on. Many of them are smuggled to China at all times. There's zillions of H100s. Maybe at the most massive scale, they can't do the biggest bulk orders, but they can get it. So whether or not they're allowed to be sold there is not the problem. They're designed in California and they are constructed in Taiwan. That does not change whether or not they're sold in China. China would fund their own chips anyways. Yes, of course they will always fund their own chips. But in the real world, the amount of funding necessary goes down exponentially if the company making them has a market to sell it into. This is an example that worked really well with EVs. If Chinese EVs were simply worse than Tesla and everyone had a choice, pick Tesla, then they'd have to dump so much money to subsidize it forever. But all they had to do was give it a little bit of a push, and then people started buying the cars because they're better. And then that gives them enough money to keep funding and start the snowball. So we want some monopoly on chips. Every corporation wants a monopoly for whatever industry they're in. It's up to the government to stop that. What you're trying to say, the argument you're apparently making, is that Trump is hoping to improve competition on American company NVIDIA So he wants to really help Chinese companies get better at AI chips so that NVIDIA has competition. And I don't think that's true. I don't think that's what the goal is. I don't think that makes any sense. I think that's not the, I think what they're trying to do is restrict NVIDIA chips from being sold in China because they think China will never catch up. And they're in fact doing the opposite. China cut drone sales to the West today. This is according to Ukraine. According to Zelensky, China has stopped selling them drones, but is still selling drones to Russia. You know, the key piece of context here would be that if you don't know, the Ukrainian war, which is like the most recent high budget war in world history, has shown that the modern technology that is most important for war is drones. Drones have been dominant in the Ukrainian war right now. All military theory pre-drones is out of date because it has shown that drones are extremely important. And the drone supply chain is heavily dominated by China. China is the world leader in drones. They make, I don't know, 80+% of the world's drones, something crazy. They make, DJI is the best drone company. Make a lot of the drones. And people have said, like, there's a strong case to be made that America or the West needs a drone supply chain because it's security critical. Being behind on drones is like being seriously behind in warfare capabilities. But until now, China was selling to both sides. China was just a drone manufacturer selling to anyone. And now they are specifically choosing Russia. Again, though, this is kind of like, this is a perfect example related to the NVIDIA thing, which is like China is kind of backfiring here. If DJI stops selling to the West, then the West has to make their own drone competitor. They have to, because they're forced to by the sanction. If they didn't do that, then China would just keep being, no one would ever compete with DJI. We would just keep buying Chinese drones forever and they would be dominant. You know, it's just funny. Whenever a government tries to force the issue and cut off supply, that's when you're ironically making your biggest competition. I think this kind of backfires for China. This like improves everyone's demand for their own separate drone supply chain. Similarly to the reverse with NVIDIA GPUs and the restrictions there. But for short term, yeah, in the short term, it's terrible for Ukraine. Just to be clear, like they need drones. This is happening with, is this a joke? Is this a joke or are you honestly, this is what I just said. Is this a joke? Is this a joke question? I actually want to know. I mean, I'm too stupid to tell if it's a joke. Is it a joke? Twitch lag. Okay. You weren't joking, but it doesn't make sense to me that it was lag. Because, okay, unless you mean before I even, I still don't understand, but okay, that's fine, that's fine. Because that's how I opened it. It's how I opened it. I said at the beginning, this is like NVIDIA and Huawei, and then I went talking for a long time. Are there any companies in America that actually replicate of China? You mean in everything? Yeah, there's plenty. I mean, there's plenty where America's leading. You know, it's a lot of different industries. But in drones, in EVs, drones, and batteries, Chinese companies are leading. They're more cutting edge on these things. But like, yeah, if you want to talk about like latest generation fighter jets or even GPUs, like NVIDIA doesn't have a peer in China yet. I don't know if you meant like rival the tech, like the tech war is still, I would say, America favored, to be honest. There's more high-end tech there, but it's more of like direction of travel, you know? Speed. Oh, Squeaks messaged me. Someone said I left Squeaks hanging. How would you know that, first of all? Secondly, I didn't leave him hanging. He's still making up his fake family. He said, I'm gonna be a little bit late. I'm making dinner for my family. Fake family, dude. They're real, all right. They're real and he's a bad father because I see him at 3 a.m. his time every night playing like Enter the Gungeon. And then he wakes up at 1 p.m. his time and goes live by 4. So that's like 3 hours a day max that he could have spent with his kids. Max. Oh, they're real, all right. A real pain in the ass. Dude, I can't wait to be a dad and just start dropping dadisms all the time. It's going to be awesome. Stans is going to be good at it. Oh, Stans is going to be great. Stans is built to be the barbecue white guy dad. Stans is going to, well, it's funny though. He's vegetarian. He kind of f***ing it up. But like, he's definitely the guy that would have like a kiss the chef apron at the grill. They let this guy in, they let anyone in here. He also, by the way, Stans is like a very chill vegetarian. He's about as chill as you get in that he often eats meat. When I say that, he's chill in that he breaks edge a lot. He's a vegetarian by like day-to-day lifestyle. He's a vegetarian by like, what am I going to make my food for most of my day? Like 80% of my meal, 90% of my meals. But if you're ever at like a place that has good steak or like if we go to a steakhouse, he's like, well, I'm not gonna get the fucking tofu. So he gets a steak. So it's like, that's actually the perfect, you know, I got no problem with that. He has never impacted our ability to pick a fun restaurant. He just wants healthy shit in his real life. I think that's cool. I think it's dope. I think it's a good way to live. I think eating vegetables is healthy for you. So like, I respect people that do it more. I just can't get enough of those glizzy.